scripture reading comes from Genesis 12, 1-3. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on earth will be blessed through you." The word of the Lord.
Would you welcome Danny and Debbie this morning?
Yeah. Thank you. July 7th, 2012 was the happiest day of my life. I got married. That's my wife. She makes me look a little better, doesn't she? And after we got married, we got a chance to go on a honeymoon. We had this amazing opportunity to go from Athens, Greece to Venice by boat. We went through the Mediterranean, we had 4-course meals, and we were definitely the youngest people on the cruise. Everyone else was older than 60. We landed in Venice, Italy. If you've ever been to Venice, it's one of the most peculiar places I've ever been to. It literally feels like it's built on water. We went there, we spent a few days there, and my wife and I decided we'd be really adventurous. So we did what every good American does, thinking that they can rent a car in a foreign country. We decided we'd rent a car. We got into our small red Fiat 2-seater, barely fitting our luggage, because Americans always carry a lot of clothes. And we got into our Fiat and we started driving. Late afternoon quickly became dusk, and dusk became darkness. And we still had 3 hours to go. We were going from Venice, Italy, all the way to Cinque Terre on the other side of Italy. While we were driving, I quickly realized that there were 3 reasons this was a bad idea. Number 1, we didn't have a GPS. No internet, no cell phone, no GPS. They had run out at the rental store. Secondly, it was the second time I had ever driven stick shift. In Europe, right, all the cars are stick. And I had driven it twice. So they called what I did a lot stalling, right? I was like, up these little tiny hills in these vortex of circles, and we got stuck. We were driving, and then finally, the last reason why I knew that this was going to be a bad idea was because a few months ago when I was booking this trip, I had called my car rental insurance, American Express, and I said, "Hey, I know you guys do car insurance for foreign car rentals." They said, "Sir, yeah, we do. We cover every single country in the world. Which one are you going to?" I said, "Italy." After a few minutes, the travel agent said, "Sir, I'm sorry. We cover every single country except for 2 countries. Italy is one of them." We still got a rental car because I wanted to be a brave American driving through Italy on my own. But while we were driving, I suddenly realized this was a bad idea. We started crisscrossing through these one-way roads, back and forth, and we had to get to our Airbnb, or else my newly wedded wife and I were sleeping in our Fiat that night. We were driving, I was getting upset. My wife turned to me, she said, "Why didn't you find it?" Our GPS was my iPad with screenshots of every single turn along the way. Our makeshift GPS, and I was just wondering, what in the world am I doing here? This is going to turn out to be a really bad story, and I'm going to be a horrible husband because we might die tonight. As we were driving, we had no hope. We see this tiny little house around the bend with one light on. It happened to be a restaurant that was just about to close. I said, I don't really want to go in there to ask for help because my pride was broken at that point. But my wife turned to me and said, "You better go in there and go get some help." We walk in, and I say, "You know what? This guy probably doesn't speak English." The waiter was closing up shop. I turned to him and said, "Alessandro?" That was the name of our host for our Airbnb. A few minutes later, he turns to me and says, "Alessandro? Follow me." So he jumps on his motorcycle, and 10 minutes later, as we continue to drive, he leads us to our final destination, our Airbnb. We did not die that night, by the way. Life feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? It feels like an endless journey. It's dark. You don't have a map. You don't have internet, right? Life feels like that sometimes. You're upset, you're hungry, you don't know where you're heading, and you're fumbling about, and you ask yourself the question, how did I ever get here? My name is Danny, and I am a restless wanderer just like you. Just because we have these fancy Britney Spears mics on and sitting on these stools doesn't mean we have it all figured out. But this morning, we want to invite you into a conversation of what it looks like to follow Jesus in the most peculiar ways, to follow him into the unknown, and to discover who God has called you and made you to be.
Thank you, Danny. And my name's Devin. I'm also just a wanderer on this risky journey. It's a risky journey of becoming whole, and it's a risky journey of finding ourselves on purpose. And I want to tell you a story about when I was in college. I was a freshman in college, and my Italian teacher, whose name was Alessandra, funny enough,
Ironic.
That's just a coincidence. We
Same
didn't plan
person,
that.
actually, not
yes.
really.
Alessandra, we love them. So Alessandra asked me to stay after class one day, and I had a pretty good feeling of why that was, because you see, I wasn't showing up to class, or if I was late. I wasn't turning in my assignments, or if I was, they were kind of pathetic. I was failing my tests and my midterms, and I wasn't participating in class. I went from being an A student in the subject that I loved most to basically failing out. And she calls me in, and she just looks me in the eye, and she asks me a very simple question. She just says, "Devin, what's going on?" And I began to weep. I began to cry, and in between my tears, I explained to her that I was disengaged, that I wasn't present because my mom was dying. Because I was just waiting to get the call and hear my dad's quivering voice on the other end of the line saying that she was gone, or that she wasn't going to make it through the weekend, so it was time to come home. And that really finishing my response paper to the movie Cinema Paradiso wasn't really my priority at this point. I was living in survival mode. And many of you might be in survival mode right now for your own reasons. Maybe it is a sick family member, maybe it is you who are sick. Some of you are experiencing the sting of your parents' recently announced divorce. Others of you are waiting to get that email from SFS about paying your bill, and you're anxiously waiting to see what your paycheck is going to be like this week. Others of you are questioning your faith and wondering, what is this all for? There are people in this room who are struggling with an addiction that feels like it's swallowing them like quicksand. And some of you are feeling the weight, 1,000-pound weight of depression or anxiety on your soul. And we want you to know that we know this is very real. That some of you are in survival mode, just like I was. And that we get it. So you're telling me, you're thinking to yourselves, how am I supposed to talk to you, go into your office, talk about my passions and my hopes and my dreams when I'm just trying to make it day by day. I'm just trying to survive the week. And some of the things that put us into this survival mode cannot be helped. Some of them need a miracle. Some of them need an overwhelming amount of love and support to come alongside us. And I will say that I got my miracle. Against all the odds, my mom beat what they would say was impossible. And actually, kind of cool, she's here today. Mom, can you wave?
Yeah.
Yeah. She hates being the center of attention, so I just made her blush, and she's crying. It's a good combo. Thanks, Mom. I love you. I love you. So it's okay to not be okay. And I will say first, we have to get that support and love. We have to have those people who come on our right and on our left and in front and behind and lift us up in those times. And when that happens, then we can be opened up to dream and to step into what God has called us to. And so even with the miracle, I still had to pull myself up. I still had to have those people around me, and I still had to do the hard work now of finding myself on purpose and figuring out what was I placed on this earth to do. And so part of that was this exciting but confusing issue of wanting to do everything. That was kind of my MO, was I want to be and do it all. I want to live overseas. I want to live in San Diego. I want to do public health work. I wanted to go into marketing. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to do all these volunteer causes, and I wanted to fit it all into my one life. And so one day, I was having a conversation with my mentor and sharing all these wild and fragmented dreams and ideas and buzzing with a combination of anxiety and excitement within me, and sharing with him all the different countries and hobbies and volunteer causes and careers that I wanted to pack into my life, and telling him that I was so afraid of choosing one because what if I picked the wrong one? And because, of course, the first thing you do after college determines the rest of your life, just so you all know. Just no pressure. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't determine that. And what he did was he stopped me mid-sentence before I basically ran out of breath and passed out, and he just says, Devin, there are no alternate realities of your life. There are no alternate realities of your life. If you pick this one thing, if you pick A, and you love A, and you pursue A with all your heart, there is no other world where you picked path B or 2 or X, and you lived in a different city, and you had a different job, and you met a different person, and you had another life. There's only one path. It's the path that you choose. There are no alternate realities of your life. And God doesn't operate in alternate realities. And so then the next thing is, oh, so it's my choice. That was a scary thing. It's my choice. I honestly, you guys, at that point, I was like, can someone please, God, just send a plane to write in the air what you want me to do. Just write it out for me, and I will do it. Just tell me what it is. Because I so wanted an answer. And I think sometimes God just tells us, I've put these gifts and these strengths and these passions and these things that make your heart break and these things that make your heart sing. I put all of those within you, so you choose. And the cool thing is, guys, that we don't have to give up on those other dreams. If we choose one thing, sometimes God does a miraculous and really cool thing of bringing back those dreams in another stage or another season of life. I'm sure you could talk to a lot of people, staff, faculty, people who are a little further along, who will say they never thought they would get a chance to do that thing they love. And so it might just not be our timing, but it's God's timing. And we have this one life, but the one life has so many chapters. So there's a quote that we wanted to share with you. It's from this book called Let Your Life Speak by an author, Parker Palmer. And we just think this quote is brilliant. It says, vocation does not come from a voice out there calling me to become something I'm not. It comes from a voice in here calling me to be the person I was born to be, to fulfill the original selfhood given me at birth by God. So if your life could speak, what would it say?
One of the things that I think is so good in that quote is that sometimes we think that the voice is out there and we need to find it. But the reality is God has given us a voice within, and he says, are you willing to discover it? Are you willing to unpack it and to listen to it? You see, for most of my life, I didn't listen to that voice. I listened to the voice of everybody else. My dad is an extremely successful pediatrician. He immigrated from Korea. He was dirt poor, and he made ends meet, and now he's a doctor. And so when I saw his story, and I saw the story that he was writing, and the story that he had given to me and blessed me with, that I was inherited with, I thought to myself, I needed to be just like Dad. He would study with me for my AP bio classes. You guys know how that goes? I got a 4. Not as good as a 5, but I got 4. I went to Cal Poly to study pre-med, And in my first class with 400 freshman biology students, I failed miserably. And later I didn't feel so bad because I heard that class, they actually try to weed people out because there's so many pre-med students. So I was like, well, maybe I could keep going with this. I continue to stick with it, but I realized that every single summer and every single weekend and everything that I was doing outside of my bio labs I was in ministry. I loved ministry. I would serve overseas. I started Bible studies in my dorm room, and I loved talking with people about truth and about grace. And it was my junior year, and I had to make a decision. There was a fork in the road in some ways. Do I pick medicine, the stable, the financially successful career, or do I pick ministry? You guys get it. Not that, right? Not the other side of it. And I had to weigh it out. God, what do you want me to do with my life? And it was during that season of my life that I heard this great story. It's about a story of a man who traveled to Calcutta, India to be with Mother Teresa. He went and asked her, he said, Mother Teresa, I want to know what to do with the rest of my life. How many of you guys would take that opportunity if you could, right? To go to Calcutta and talk to Mother Teresa or someone that's like that. And he goes to her one morning and says, Mother Teresa, tell me what I should do with my life. She says, how can I pray for you today? And the man turns to her and says, Mother Teresa, I want you to pray for clarity. I just want to know. Clarity, I need clarity. And Mother Teresa gently turns to him and says, Sir, I will not pray for clarity because I have never had clarity in my life. Instead, I'm going to pray for trust. You see, for me, the reason why I wanted to pick medicine was because it was financially stable. And because it was financially stable, I had control and it was clear and I knew where I was heading. And ministry just felt murky and uncertain. What do I do with that? And yet God was calling me from within and he invited me to create space in my life that I could listen and heed and listen to the voice within me. When I have an opportunity to coach students, I often like to draw this diagram out for them. Now is where we are, right here, right now. Whether you're a freshman, junior, senior, sophomore, wherever you are, that's where you are. And that's you. That's your future you. Imagine what it could be, tons of possibilities. And oftentimes when I talk with students, I draw this out. Oftentimes we think that our career paths are linear. Just one straight shot to the moon. I'll get there, and I'm gonna get my dream job when I turn 21, when I graduate from Point Loma, and then I never have to worry about it again. But oftentimes, our path looks a little bit more like this, doesn't it? And if you talk to any of your professors, if you talk to our coaches, that's where we are. You know, you kind of make a right, and then you have a dotted line, you get lost, and you go far to the left, and then you couple zigzags and switchbacks, and you're wondering, how in the world did I get here? You see, right after college, I decided to go get my MDiv. I became a pastor for 5 years. And while I was there, God was beckoning me to listen to something else, and he was saying, Danny, I want you to coach people. That's what I've made you to do. And I began to listen even more intently. And 6 months ago, I stepped down from my pastorate role to be here, to be at Point Loma. And I've had to wrestle through that. I'll be honest with you guys. It's hard to be an ex-pastor. It doesn't sound very good. But the reality of it is that when we do what God has called us to do, we never have to look back and regret. God does not waste any of your story. He doesn't waste any of your zigzags and turns, but rather he leads you in the direction of you, and he invites you to trust in him. I love this verse out of Proverbs 16. It says this: we make our plans, right? Med school, dentistry, engineering, business, entrepreneurship, nursing. We make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps.
Thank you, Danny. So I wanted to share a story with you as well about an author and speaker that I love. Her name is Elizabeth Gilbert, and she wrote a little book called Eat, Pray, Love. Anybody heard of it? It's a good book, yeah. Good book. And so she, on top of being an author and a speaker, she has one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time. It's great. I highly recommend it. And I wanted to share with you a little piece of that in which she talks about writing Eat, Pray, Love, being in the midst of it, and she said she was in what she called the pit of despair. She said she was in this place where she thought, I'm literally writing the worst book ever. Not just a bad book, but the worst book ever. And she thought she was going to dump the project. And she said that she had a choice between going into a spiral of desperation and trying something that a fellow writer of hers shared. It was kind of a peculiar little practice. And so what she did was she said she lifted her face from her manuscript and she directed her comments to an empty corner of the room. And she just said, hey, you thing. You and I both know that if this book doesn't turn out brilliantly, it's not entirely my fault. Because you see, I'm here, I'm showing up, I've showed up every day, I'm giving this all I have nothing more to give. So if you want it to be any better, you gotta show up and you have to do your part. But even if nothing changes, I'm still gonna be here, I'm still gonna show up because that's my job. And she says, so I would like the record to reflect today that I did my part of the job. I showed up today. And I think that's just an interesting parallel. I think there's a similar invitation. So for her, she was talking to you, being her creativity, being some other thing. But I think God invites us to do the same thing, to just show up sometimes and to not expect the crazy success or not have any idea what the outcome is. She had no idea what was going to come of this book. So I think God invites us to just show up today and create. What would that look like for you? To show up and take an active role in choosing your major. To show up, to listen to your voice and not the voices of others. What would it look like for you to find yourself on purpose and to let your life speak? So from this, we decided, okay, we've talked a lot here about the big picture kind of stuff, and Danny and I want to give you something you can hold on to. So from the word create, we created an acronym that kind of helps you through this process to show up.
Yeah. So the first one is this: create space. Any activators in the room? StrengthsFinder activators? All right, 3 of you. We're 2. Activators medicate on momentum. We love speed. We don't like to slow down. We just want what's next, the shiny object out there, and we want to create space. The invitation for you this morning is this: as you figure out your call and your vocation, create space in your life.
Mm-hmm. The next is respond. I see a lot of people in my office who say, I don't know what I'm good at. And honestly, a big way to figure that out is to act, to respond, to go out and try something, do something new, do something that you might fail at. Try a new hobby or a new class. Get those experiences that bring you out of your comfort zone. We want to respond.
Yeah. Third, empathize. Often we think of empathize and empathy as somebody else, but be kind to yourself. Be gentle. How many of you guys already hear enough voices around you? Mm-hmm. I think 9 times out of 10, I ask people in my office, I say, hey, who told you should be a doctor? And they say, well, mom did. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Be kind to yourself. We already have enough voices, and I love what it says in Romans. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Awesome. Next, we want to ask. Sometimes the things that we really want in life are just barely outside of our grasp. They're just barely out of our reach. And we don't ask enough for the things that we want or the things that we need. So ask for help. Ask for what you want. Ask for feedback. Just ask.
Time. It takes time. I had a mentor tell me once, in your 20s, you're just trying to figure it out. In your 30s, you're doing that thing that you figured out. In your 40s, you're crushing it. In your 50s, you're teaching it. And in your 60s, you're reinventing because you're irrelevant. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. I'm just totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. But here's the thing. It gives you some space. It gives you some space to not have to figure out what you want to do for the rest of life and be crushing it by the time you're 21, right? So take time. It takes lots of time to figure out who God's called you to be.
Yep, absolutely. And last but not least, we want to evolve. And this just means expect change, you guys. like Danny was saying earlier about the linear path, there really is no linear path. I challenge you to find someone who just knew what they were going to do when they were 19 and did it all the way through, and nothing ever changed, and God didn't ever throw them a curveball. There will be curveballs. We have to expect change. We roll with it, and we evolve. So we wanted to end today a little bit differently, and what I would like you to do is, in silence, we're not going to speak, but I want you all to stand up in silence. And we're going to hold the hands of our partners and our friends on our right and our left. Okay? So, here's what we're going to do. We are going to make this commitment together today. I'll read it first, and then we'll read it as a group. It says, "Today I choose to show up and be a co-creator with God in this one wild and precious life." So now let's say it all together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Today I choose to show up and be a co-creator with God in this one wild and precious life.
Hey, as you stay standing, I just want to make an invitation. As is our custom on Wednesdays, we're going to have some space down here to linger. If you need prayer, if you feel stuck, if you feel confused, if you just need to say, God, I want trust, not clarity today. I want to follow you, not follow the voices around me, but follow you in this one wild and precious life. If that's you today, I'm going to pray for us. And then in silence, if you got class to go to, or if you got to go study or whatnot, please do that in silence so that people can stay here and linger and experience the Spirit together. Let me pray for you. Jesus, we thank you that this life is not about clarity. It's not about having all our ducks in order so that we can be the master of our lives, but rather you invite us onto this journey where you say, follow me. I will show you where I'm taking you. And so this morning, I pray that our students here, that we together as restless wanderers would hear your voice calling out from the darkness saying, come. Let me show you where you're going. Lord, we give you our lives, this one wild and precious life, knowing that you are in control, that we are not, and that you have something amazing in store for us if we would only pay attention. Thank you, Jesus. Let me pray.